Cole, Jeremetrius Cubelic joining us right now on the, not on the heels, on the precipice of you headed to Columbia, South Carolina, where you will be, first off, are you sideline or are you booth for this game?
Well, sideline as of now, unless we have dual radio failure in an airplane, which would prevent Jordan Rodgers from getting there, then I would go to the booth again.
Okay,
yes.
So 50-50. All right, Diego Pavia, this is how I've heard the matchup presented. I don't know if you're aware of this. It is 1-on-11. It is Diego Pavia versus South Carolina. Obviously, there's a little bit more to it than this. I've heard some radio chatter out of Birmingham all week, namely by you. McElroy has assisted somewhat, and what you've talked about is not Diego Pavia, not because you're overlooking him, but because I think you understand most people know about him. He's a known commodity. But you've talked about something that I have not heard anyone in my lifetime talk about, and that is the size and overall increased athletic profile of the Vanderbilt offensive line. What world are we living in?
They went and got some guys that remind you of just club bouncers. They will toss you out of there in a hurry. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the technique, the fundamentals, the footwork, the hand placement is pretty or coach clinic tape worthy, but they're big. They look like traditional SEC offensive linemen. They're physical as far as how they get after you and the things that they want to do to you after the ball snapped. And it's a little bit of a different tone. I haven't seen a Vanderbilt offensive line be able to do some of the things that this group does. Now, technically, fundamentally, I have seen better in the past, but it's pretty apparent that what Clark Lee wanted to do was go out and get a couple of guys that could just push you around and had some mean, had some nasty to them. I think it gives them a little bit of a different edge. The north-south run game, I think, has developed faster this year than maybe it did ago. It's not as reliant on getting people to go a different direction or read a different key. They can just come at you sometimes. So that aspect of this with a new-ish South Carolina defensive line should be interesting.
Now, when I was doing your show this morning, because, that is something we put people through. I do yours in the morning, you do mine at night. We had this cliffhanger moment. You know, after I had done a whole 2 segments with you, we still didn't have time to get it all in. And you said, hey, quickly here, because in radio land, you actually have what we call hard outs. Here, we just do a telethon all night if we want to. You said, give me a brief something on Vandy, South Carolina. Then I'll come on your show tonight. I hadn't even invited you yet. Then I'll come on your show tonight, and I'll tell you what I think the big key of this game is. So everyone's waited all day. They sat at their desk nervously waiting for 5 o'clock so they could drive home, so they could hear you present this hidden key that's going to unlock the vision of how Vanderbilt, South Carolina will play out. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, first off, no one's waited for that because they didn't care what I think and what I say. But I'm going to give it to you anyway. I think there are a lot of things that people will look at. We mentioned that new Vanderbilt offensive line, Dylan Stewart, Brian Thomas, that South Carolina defensive line, the veteran secondary that South Carolina brings to the table. A couple of new players defensively for Vanderbilt that like to attack, come to the line of scrimmage. How are they going to play some of the read game? Lenore Sellers, Nick Harbor. We can go a lot of different directions. I'm going to tell you what's going to decide this game, Josh, right now. There will be 3 to 5 what the F plays from Diego Pavia in this game. Now, that could be what the F he scored or what the F they got the ball they're going to score. Because Diego Pavia, through 2 games this year, has still proven that those plays are inside of him. Now, I believe that his brain tells him, I can make these plays. That's why I'm going to attempt this. When a defender's trying to tackle me and I literally look backwards and pitch the ball over my shoulder, we'll see if that works. And then his player either catches it or doesn't. He fade away off the back foot, throwing the ball 50 yards down the field, double coverage, thinks he's going to complete that. Against Alabama, that was a touchdown. Against Virginia Tech, should have been an interception, penalty negated that. Those are the plays where he's running out trying to block somebody on the option. I love to see it, but there are certain ways that he manages and handles the ball sometimes that the only way to truly react to him is, what in the expletive are you doing? And then it's usually no, yes, or no, hell to the no. So I think there'll be 3 to 5 of those. And if they go Vanderbilt's way, they win the game. If they don't and they go South Carolina's game and it gives them a short field or it gives them points, South Carolina will win that football game.
You going to use that kind of language on air? If you're using it here, using it on this show, you just going to drop it there on the sideline Saturday?
I thought this was the internet.
No, it is. Yeah, I just got to snap my fingers. We'll put a TVMA up there. We're fine. By the way, if I was Clark, I would take credit. I would just say, that's our offense. You guys don't think that's designed. It looks improv. That's the beauty of the play design. Speaking of which, last week, USF beats Florida. We will slowly transition to Florida LSU. Did you happen to watch Golish's post-game news conference, which was almost entirely Zoom-based? And somebody asked him about the play where they heave it up. I think Florida's safety pulled up because he got there so early. He's terrified that he's about to decapitate a guy because of the new rules discouraging that sort of thing. Where are we as a society? And ball's caught. They move it down inside the 20. It ends up setting up for a game-winning field goal. And someone asks him, I mean, it's like a 2.5-minute question. And the dude's just teeing him up to brag about their offensive system. What did you see? What kind of checks were made at the line of scrimmage? And Golish went, yeah, we drew him off sides. We just throw it up. I mean, we just coached him to throw it up. He had a shot. He had a shot. He could have flexed, and half the folks wouldn't have even known the difference. Shame on him, in this case, for telling the truth. You don't always have to tell the truth. Meemaw taught me that all the time. If someone's stupid enough to think you're smart, do not correct them.
Oh, okay. But it is smart because you have that in your back pocket of why a team shouldn't jump offside. So it is planned to sit there and say, don't move. The center's the only one that can move on the play. If you see that defender offside, you snap the ball. Some teams will just spike it or throw it out of bounds. But what we used to do is we would have one route and the receiver would just go and you throw it up, because what's the worst that can happen there? The guy picks it off and then the penalty negates it and you take your 5 yards. So you hope that you can go up and grab one, then you decline the penalty like you're talking about with South Florida, and you end up being a touchdown, field position, whatever it is. So it's still a smart play. It's just he didn't want to take all the credit for how the play actually turned out.
So it's a funny path those two teams from that game took last week. USF's going to go down to Miami. Keep this lower third up because that's the game we're going to talk about. But USF is going to go down to Miami. They're like a 17.5-point dog. Everyone's looking at that saying, wow, is that too many points? And I actually don't think so. I think Miami will have a good day Saturday. This game right here, you and I talked about it this morning. We have spoken about it privately this week, which is no one's business, but now we'll speak about it publicly. Over a touchdown being given to a desperate Florida team. Talent profile matches up, so recruiting classes and whatnot, the athletes they have on the field roughly matches up. Up until about 5 seconds ago, many people would have told you maybe Florida's got the quarterback edge here. Up till 5 minutes ago, and including now, some people, I'll get your take on this, but some people may say, you know, Florida should find a line of scrimmage advantage here. Florida should be able to do some business on the ground here. Maybe they limit LSU's ability to do that. So all of that is potentially there. I made a big deal the other night about potential versus production, and the latter of which not being there for Florida right now. And too often times under Billy it hadn't been there. How do you feel this game going?
It's like a chemistry teacher with your potential production ladder, this, that. Line of scrimmage, I don't think that there will be a way for Florida to have a massive advantage. Now, Caleb Banks coming back could be huge. I think the bigger question for me here, Josh, is where does LSU want this game to go? Like, what style game do they want? Probably some sort of a track meet, I would assume, because you probably would think if things are slowing down and you're only going to get so many possessions, you don't fully trust your offensive line. Your center's probably out of this game. And if you have to play from behind, then that means Caleb Banks and Cersei and company are going to be able to tee off and come after you. You probably don't want to be there. You would rather have your extension of the run game with short, quick passes. Nussmeier sort of manage that, get some explosives at some point, allow your defense to play super aggressive, whereas if they did give up a long play, it's not going to matter that much. But that aggressiveness that they play with is when they play best and how they play best, so let them go do that. And if you're Billy, I think you want to slow this game down. I think you want to say, yeah, we want to try to make you play from behind. We want to put pressure on you by knowing that your possessions are going to be limited. And then maybe you try to do something that you're not capable of. LSU will handle the lack of a running game themselves. They won't hand the football off enough. I mean, that's who they are. It's who they've been for the last couple of years. I don't feel like that's going to change this year. But I do like the fact that Florida lives in the neighborhood of the outside zone play. Stretch play is their bread and butter. And then they can do that with 12 personnel with 2 tight ends that widens the surface. So you take all the aggressive scud missiles on that LSU defense and you at least remove them another gap from the football. And by the way, that play can go all the way outside that front side tight end. It can hit all the way backside behind the backside tight end. So you still have to manage everything in between. Then you build your play actions, your bootlegs. You have splitters, you have jet motion guys. So you use the misdirection to try to just slow those guys down. Perkins, the Weeks brothers, of just not teeing off on your snap count on every play. Those are big advantages against a defense that lives in attack mode 24/7. And LSU does that. I mean, let's be real here. Like LSU, they are a bunch of trained assassins on defense. Like Jack Pyburn was probably the best fit as far as a pickup of any team in college football this year, because all he wants to do is trade paint and dent face masks. That's all he cares about doing. And if that means he's not going to touch the quarterback, but he gets to go knock a guard down, and that opens it up for a loop man. I mean, he's been responsible for both corner crashes that have hit this year by removing other blockers from where that corner was going to come from and try to get to the quarterback. So you can negate a lot of that by just where they live and how they operate. So I'm really interested to see if Florida does play super slow, if they can get some of that run game going, because Jaden Ball was super close last week. And I just don't think the film was as bad as people are saying. I understand the loss is bad. That can't happen. It's unacceptable. But when you just watch it play after play after play, you don't walk away from it saying, goodness, Florida's a gross football team. Like, they're incapable. They have no idea what they're doing. They have guys that don't want to be out there. That wasn't it. I mean, you still had guys that were playing hard. You missed a couple opportunities, and you made some massive mistakes that were essentially behavioral mistakes, fundamental mistakes that shouldn't take place, and it cost you the game. So I'm really interested to see sort of where that part of this game goes, because LSU probably trusts their secondary now too. So they'll bring extra men down to the box, to try to take that away. So I can't wait to see the tempo of this game, because I think that probably decides it, because one side's going to be good at that and the other side isn't.
We'll get back to the video 1 second. Do me one quick favor. Look down. Make sure you're subscribed. Most of you are. If you're not, please do so. It's the way we keep the channel free, we keep the videos coming, and we get to do college football year-round as God intended. All right, as promised, back to the video. Did you find yourself watching Notre Dame Miami, and what happened to Notre Dame's offensive line, kind of using that to look ahead to the A&M game? Did you find yourself watching that on the rewatch saying, on one hand, this is not a great look for Notre Dame's offensive line. However, number 4 there from Miami, I'm not sure there are many more of him across the country. I'm not sure there are many more of him across Notre Dame's schedule the rest of the year. Because like Notre Dame's offensive line, people just look at a statistic. They look at a stat line. They look at a pressure rate. You love the PFF numbers. I know you live in that world. And
so accurate.
Yes, they look at all that and they say, oh, Notre Dame's offensive line's terrible or was terrible this night. So first thing I want you to do, take me a little more in the weeds on what you saw in that game. Secondly, do you look at it kind of like you were talking about with Florida, saying, the rewatch here is not nearly as bad or doom and gloom as the nation is making it out to be. There's one player here, or there's one correctable, 2 correctable things there. Sometimes it's within your control. Sometimes it's you faced an alien that Saturday that you won't see again. And as you move forward, things should look a lot better. Or have you just overrated some unit?
No, and Ruben Bain is one of those guys. I mean, he is alien-like playing defense. There's not oftentimes a lot you can do about it. I'm going to use an example from my game last weekend, and I think this is kind of applicable. It'll take people to where you can get in a game or even in a segment of the season as an offensive lineman. We talked to Ryan Grubb last week, and I asked him about Caden Proctor, and he's an old offensive line coach. So are there things that you guys are going back with, technically, fundamentally trying to work with? And he said, listen, Caden needs a fastball and a changeup. He said, I don't know why we're trying to go into this thing with like a 7 or 8 or 9 pitch arsenal with how we're doing things. And what he was saying was he's trying to come up with all these creative sets and these one-arm stabs and these different quick sets and these deep sets. And what an offensive lineman cannot do, Josh, is dictate to the defensive lineman how to rush. That cannot happen. You want to try to negate certain things that you think he's going to do from taking place to maybe push him into his weakness or give you some sort of an advantage. But they're going to key off your neck, your shoulder, your hip, and your foot. Basically, that play side or the backside that's a little bit deeper when you're in your stance. You open those hips up, they're going upfield, or they're going right down the middle of you. You stay closed tight, you set flat, and probably maybe expect them to try to beat you around the edge quickly, or they're going to give you a quick inside move, but it's going to have to happen fast. And that might be the only part of it that you can dictate. But I think we give them too much credit sometimes as to say, we can set this way, that way, therefore he has to do that. I don't think defensive linemen think it out that much. They're reactionary. I think they have one or two things they think they might want to do. Those guys are playing 100 miles an hour. They're playing with their hair on fire. They're not sitting there thinking about what a tackle's doing or how do I process this, process that. So then you start to think about, okay, well, he got me around the corner, so I have to get depth. Well, now you're retreating. By nature, it's what you have to do. You're going backwards. Well, he knows that. So what's the next thing he's going to do? He's going to turn like he's going upfield and go right down the middle of you. And you're probably going to get at least knocked back, if not knocked over. All right, well, now I have to set a little bit more stout, which means I can't move laterally as quickly. So you take a 1-2 more stout set, you're firm, you're ready, inside move. You can't recover fast enough and get back inside. You're smoked again. All of that gets to creeping in your head. You start to think too much instead of just taking your 1 or 2 natural sets, being patient, allowing the defensive lineman to do what he thinks he's going to do, and then attack once he gets to you. And one of the things I saw, especially late in that Notre Dame-Miami game, is you're just thinking too much. And you think you have to try to attack or dictate what a defensive lineman is going to do to you, and you can't do that. Now, you also had youth. You were also banged up in fall camp. So some of those things play into it as well. I bet Mike Denbrock would go back and say, there's some things we could have done earlier in the game to begin to slow that down. Tight ends to that side, chips to that side, maybe sprint outs away or to that side, draws to that side, just to make them aware that other things could possibly happen. And you don't get to just tee off on my tackle one-on-one and go after my quarterback. So those are the things that I would kind of look at. The things that are scary are when one-on-one losses are repeatedly happening to the same guy. And especially if they're happening the same way. Because not only now is that in your mind, but that defender knows he's got you. And he's going to be able to continue to set you up and continue to do different things. And your reaction is probably not going to be enough because you're playing on your heels and you're overthinking about where he's going to go and where he might go instead of just trusting your technique and fundamentals. So it's a lot more of a mental game than people realize. And that's a little bit of what I saw late in that game against Miami with the Notre Dame tackles, is that you start thinking about, I've got to make some sort of a change in how I attack this. And he knows that's coming, and he's going to take advantage of it when you do.
You were talking about Grubb there. You had the Bama game last week, right?
Did.
Yeah. All right. Let's do some journalism. Willie C. at JR from Bama on Twitter hit us in the middle of the game at SEC Network. Please never let Cole call an Alabama football game anymore. He sounds like a biased partisan hack. Your reaction?
He's got the hack part right. Yeah. If I knew what partisan meant, I would say maybe yes, maybe no. I'm not going to debate it because
he responded.
I don't know words that are that long.
He responded, according to Willie, you're an Auburn guy. There's no evidence of that I see anywhere.
Yeah, no. I mean, where would the evidence of that be? I mean, how would anyone ever imagine that or think that? Am Auburn guy, have degree, have diploma. Has a letter from when played on campus for said football team. And if that's the way he wants to hear it, good for him. Just because he uses fancy words doesn't mean he knows what he's talking about.
What happened? Did you pump UL Monroe a little bit? I mean, they almost scored, according to how much bias you show. 73-0 could become 73-3 really quick.
I think it was the me proclaiming Parker Brailsford as the best player on the team and the best center in the nation that just set him off. He couldn't handle it anymore. And he said, enough, get this hack off my television. Don't like him.
Not even a homegrown kid.
I was told by that guy that tweeted in that he hates bald people, so I don't even know why you're reading his tweets.
Yeah, let's move on. It gets a little personal there. All right, we got 3 or 4 minutes left. With that 3 or 4 minutes, I want to ask you, I've heard a lot of people, including me, talk about Joey Aguilar. Can he step up on the big stage against Georgia? Ditto for Gunnar Stockton. First game on the road. You got that wide receiver core. Can you take advantage of it against perhaps a vulnerable Tennessee secondary? Then I was driving into the office today, and I was thinking about talking to you after the Tennessee-Syracuse game. And I was thinking about how on all these units in week 1, you probably texted me the most about the Tennessee offensive line out of any unit that you watched. You're pretty impressed with him. And I thought to myself, Josh Heupel at his core would run the ball 500 times a game if he could. Do we know for sure that Georgia's run defense is up to this task? Do we know that? Because all this stuff we're going to find out Saturday, I haven't talked a lot about the Georgia run defense because it's always just kind of there. And I want to ask you, you think it's just kind of there? Like, do you think they're going to have to come off that and find something else here? Or might we find out Tennessee has a little bit more business to be done in the run game than is previously thought come Saturday?
Well, it's fair for us to have that trepidation because of the schedule, but it's also fair for us to think back the last, I don't know, 2, 5, 8 years when we've had these similar feelings. And then when that defense has needed to show up, it showed up. And it was that defense that we wondered if it was. Just watching it, there are parts of it, yeah, absolutely, that I look at. I mean, does Raylan Wilson run like he needs to run and make contact the way that you would like to see a Georgia linebacker do it? Yes, absolutely. Seeing a little bit more of Elo Mendoza last week on the edge, being able to provide some twitch. He's someone who could give you a spark. Do they attack pullers the way you want them to? Of course. So parts of it do look that way. And we're always going to compare it to Jordan Davis and those guys and just think that it should be that way. And it's probably never going to be that way again. I give Josh Heupel credit for going into the season, the previous year, not this year, with that physical mentality and trying to build something different within your team the entire offseason of we can be physical. We can win games different ways. That was their entire offseason goal, and they did it. Go back and look at some of the big games they've won recently. Bama last year, Oklahoma last year. It wasn't because they were throwing the football over the place, because they were more physical and they ran the ball. And not just ran the ball because they created this space. Now they'll take Kitzelman and some of these tight ends. They'll insert them. They'll add them as extra blockers. They have bigger offensive linemen that like to come off the football, that don't just treat everything like they need to get in your way and wall you off. And I think part of that has been altering the system with what plays they call more often in a downhill nature. So I'll be anxious to see it, because what they're going to do is remove defenders from the box, and you're going to have to play with a little more even numbers, maybe even down a number, because they spread you out so far. Like Pete Golding used to tell me, I'm not making that decision of playing a guy right in the middle of it. He's like, forget that, man. We're either going to be in the box or we're going to be out of the box. We're going to go play those receivers, or we're going to come in and we're going to play the run. I'm not having a guy be indecisive to where, he inches down and then he doesn't do either one of them the way that we need him to do. We're at least going to be definitive in the one thing that guy does. So pay attention to Georgia's extra defender. Is he in? Is he out? Because if he's playing in between, I think that's what Josh and Joey Halzle want. They want you to be indecisive with that guy because they know he ultimately can't be that effective. I'm really interested to see, because I think everybody looks at this game, Josh, and says, can the non-existent downfield Georgia passing game find a way against these Tennessee corners that I guess people feel like have never put shoulder pads or a helmet on, so therefore they can't even locate a football or don't know what a receiver is. I actually don't think that's the matchup, because I don't think Tim Banks is dumb. And I think Tim Banks is going to protect his corners. And I think Tim Banks likes his defensive line enough to say, don't have to go up there and do all this crazy stuff with 8 or 9 defenders. Those guys are pretty good on their own. I'm going to take care of the guys out wide and make sure that they don't get smoked in this game. Then, with less numbers up front, I don't think the traditional run game from Georgia has been what it needs to be. The perimeter run game has been pretty good. I think it comes down to Gunnar Stockton. And when he leaves the pocket and he tucks the ball down, or a design run play, or when he has a read play that he can pull it and keep it and go, how does that operate? Because you're also playing against maybe the fastest linebacker in the SEC in Aaron Carter here. So I think Gunnar Stockton's legs are what's the difference in this game for Georgia, whether or not they win it or lose it.
Not to make it all about us, but we got Pate State on Rocky Top in the afternoon and Cubelic in the cockpit. How rare do we get to say that? Saturday night in prime time under the lights. He will never have looked better. I don't know if you'll sound better than you ever have, but you could have a classic on your hands. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
That's Cole Cubelic.